Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And this is a video that is dedicated to my dear friends at the Patreon page. Thank you very much as always. I set up a Patreon page a few months ago, several months ago, earlier this year, and part of the Patreon page is for paid Patreons. I have set up a thing where anyone who submits their favorite films lists to me, I will respond to such a list by making a video and just reading the list and responding in this sort of real-time fashion, as it were, making a video in this way. I've been very slow in terms of my making a video or keeping pace with the submissions that I've received, so I very much apologize for the extreme lateness of my replies in a lot of these instances. I hope you can forgive me, but I've seen all of the lists, and so I do want to continue on with making the response videos to the paid Patreon subscribers' top favorite lists, and so this is still ongoing. So anyone who's interested in submitting their list to me, you can of course do so. The Patreon page is available, and anyone who wants to be a paid Patreon subscriber, you can do so by checking out my Patreon page. But so if you're interested, please check it out. But in the sort of interest in sort of moving forward with responding to the lists, let me now go to the next list that I have right here, and it's from my dear friend GIZMORDOR, Tom GIZMORDOR. Thank you so much as always, my dear friend. It's always nice to hear from you, and we have a very good list here. And so let me check out your comment and your list, and it is as follows, which is: Hi Daisuke, I've done a top 10 alphabetical of some of my favorites. I have to preface it by saying that my actual top 10 is so similar to Tanner's that for the sake of a more interesting video topic, I have decided not to allow myself any crossover with his list. Well, that's very interesting, GIZMORDOR Tom. Thank you so much for that consideration. Very thoughtful of you. Thank you. And you continue and you say, if I was forced to pick one favorite film, it would be Apocalypse Now. Special mention for Hot Fuzz. Simon Skinner is a slasher of prices. This really hurts. Yes. Anyway, here goes. So you have your list, which is, and as you say, it's in alphabetical order. And you say, Alien, Eastern Condors. Oh, that's interesting. So I think you made this list before the Criterion Collection announcement about the release of that film. So that's great timing. You have wonderful foresight, although I know it's been available elsewhere, but well done, my dear friends. I'm sorry. So Alien, Eastern Condors, Lawrence of Arabia, Lethal Weapon, Once Upon a Time in the West, Police Story, Superman 2, The Terminator, The Thing from 1982, and The Verdict. Honourable Mention, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. It may not be objectively the best Trek film, but it will always be my favorite. Oh, wow. Tom GIZMORDOR, my dear friend, thank you so much. Let me just mention again, you mentioned around the periphery of your list, you mentioned Apocalypse Now. I wonder if you have a preferred version, or I'm not sure. I might have mentioned it. It's hard for me to pinpoint a precise version that I prefer one over the other. I find it to be more and more a kind of amalgam type of experience that I have with the overall feel of Apocalypse Now. Although I do, in some days I prefer one version, or in other days I prefer others. But that is a fascinating work. And you mentioned Hot Fuzz. I love this film, Hot Fuzz. It's one of my, I consider it in my mind, in my perspective, a kind of recent film. I know it may be in terms of the count of years, perhaps it's not recent when compared to obviously to a more recently released film. But from my vantage point, it feels like a recently released film, and I love it so much. Especially all the actors who appear in this. It's people can spot all these very famous performers. Especially, shout out to the wonderful Timothy Dalton And at the end of your comment, you mentioned Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Now, I have mentioned this film on this channel, the YouTube channel, before, and I am so adoring of Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. I really am. Maybe I should do a fan commentary. I've done a live stream discussion on Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Maybe I should do a fan commentary track. You know, there's the Klingons, right? Kruge, and there's I want to say Christopher Plummer. That's in another Star Trek. Christopher Lloyd, and there's his two kind of lieutenants or right. I guess they're lieutenants. I'm not sure, but there's the one guy. And he's got the mustache, and he looks kind of like Johnny Depp. And then there's the other guy who's John Larroquette. So it's a great combination. You have Christopher Lloyd or Doc from Back to the Future, and then you have Johnny Depp, and then you have John Larroquette. So it's like Night Court and 21 Jump Street and Back to the Future. It's amazing. And then Star Trek, of course. And there's a moment in Star Trek where I think Kirk, as he's on the Enterprise, and they're waiting, the space doors have opened, and there's a moment where Sulu says, "We have cleared space doors," and you look at Kirk's face. He's still Admiral at this point, right? So you look at Kirk's face, and he says, he looks so much like Michael Myers from the Halloween films. But anyway, yes, I did I'm very proud, because on the YouTube channel, I think one of the earliest YouTube shorts that I did in terms of these impressions, I did an impression of Christopher Lloyd fighting Kirk on the Genesis planet. It was I was very proud of that. There were a couple of them, I think. I was really proud of that. I don't know if I can do it now, but Maltz Choi Chu. Yeah, sorry. Anyway. So now to your list. Now you have the list, and I mentioned Eastern Condors, Lethal Weapon. Oh, Lethal Weapon. This is a very, very interesting film. I'm a big fan of Lethal Weapon. I think perhaps my favorite of the Lethal Weapon films probably have to be Lethal Weapon 2. So I'm very happy that you have Lethal Weapon. I remember my mom and dad in particular, they loved the Lethal Weapon films, the first and the second one. So that's great. Lethal Weapon, yes. And then Lawrence of Arabia. This is another film that I saw over and over again as a kid. There was a period in my life when I was younger, and I saw this film over and over again. And I think the just things like the famous shot of blowing the match, and then the cut, the famous edit, one of the most famous edits in cinema history, to the desert. And things too that are some sort of under the surface. There's a lot of things that are left unspoken about this film, Lawrence of Arabia, as well as the central towering performance. I mean, there's so many great performances, right? Omar Sharif, but Peter O'Toole, and the relationship between Peter O'Toole's character and Omar Sharif's character in particular, I think, really just kind of, in many ways, are sort of heart and soul of the film. Nothing is written, right? Let's see. So, and then Police Story. Police Story, I think, have we spoken about? Maybe not. We haven't spoken about Police Story. But this is also a film that I'm a big fan of. I was particularly happy to see, for instance, Police Story and Police Story 2, and receiving a lot of healthy releases, as well as other films of a similar import. So, well done. Once Upon a Time in the West. I've spoken about this film as well, but let me just say, if you have not seen Once Upon a Time in the West, don't read about it. Don't read anything about it. Just go and watch it. I think for me it was one of the greatest surprises in my entire life watching Once Upon a Time in the West. I saw it for the first time broadcast on TV. I knew nothing about it, and it was one of the most marvelous experiences I've experienced in my life. I wish I could have that moment back. The moment that I first saw Once Upon a Time in the West. It was glorious, absolutely glorious, in terms of certain revelations that occur fairly early on in the film. So, absolutely glorious. So, for anyone who has not seen Once Upon a Time in the West, do not read anything about it. Don't go to Wikipedia. Don't try to avoid like even looking at the posters and things. Just go in as go in as much or as knowing as little as possible about the film, if that is indeed possible in this internet age. But in any event, do your very best. I heartily recommend it if it's possible. I love this film, Once Upon a Time in the West. I really do. I love the way that the actors move, like Jason Robards, his walk, Charles Bronson, his walk. Henry Fonda, the way he walks. I think for me, walking in cinema is very important. I think the two greatest actor walks that I have seen in cinema. One is Toshiro Mifune in the Akira Kurosawa film, which is called Yojimbo. And then the other is Henry Fonda in basically any Henry Fonda film. But I would say Once Upon a Time in the West is probably for me the best Henry Fonda walk. It is so cool. The way he moves his arms at the same time as he's walking so slowly. It's so awesome. I try to mimic that. I'm unable to do so, but that's a great one. Okay, let's see here. Going on here. Alien. So should go back. Alien, the top of your list here. I know it's alphabetical order. I've spoken somewhat frequently here on Alien. I also have a number of YouTube shorts where I don't know if they get a lot of views, probably not, but I'm very, very proud of my Ash impressions, and Jones the cat impression. There's a Jones the cat impression YouTube short that I have on my YouTube channel, and also Ash, as of the time of this video, I haven't seen, for instance, Alien Romulus or anything like that, and I have kind of certain views about, say, some of the other films like Prometheus and some of the others, but I will always go back to Alien. I think Alien is there are also a lot of mysteries about the film that, even after watching it so many times, are very kind of inscrutable to me. I think that's what makes it so great. It's a real dazzler of a film. It is epic, unbelievably epic, or as Brett would say, right. Let's see. Okay, so let's go here. So, Superman 2. I wonder, do you have any thoughts about what version? Because, the Richard Donner cut has also been made available. I see what they tried to do with the Richard Donner cut. I think maybe at the end of the day, I will probably rely on the release that was generally released theatrically under the name of the director being Richard Lester. But because there are a number of sequences in that film that I find very well staged, despite what I understand the Richard Donner concept would have been. Had that been done to fruition in a full cinematic way, I think we would have had a really interesting set of films, Superman and Superman 2, but that's beside the point. I think what we have is, for me, also one of my favorite films from watching as a little kid, Superman 2. And I don't know, where do I begin with where's my comb? Where's my comb? I've lost my mind and I've lost my comb. Yeah, or let's see, gosh, the whole thing about freshly squeezed orange juice. It's something freshly squeezed orange. Everything is about freshly squeezed. What's going on there? And let's see, the thing about. The thing I don't know, I haven't read the Superman comics as carefully as I should perhaps, but the thing with when he's fighting you know, in the Fortress of Solitude, and he does the thing with the dun da 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 da, and like the giant like cellophane comes and attack da 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 da, you know. So you got giant super cellophane attacking. It's really amazing. And Gene Hackman, I think, is really quite delightful, as well as of course Margot Kidder and the three, right? Zod, Ursa, Non. I can't do a good Non impression. I have always tried, but I really can't do it. I can't do it. It sounds kind of like maybe the Muppets for me, but I like the bit where they're attacking Metropolis and they're blowing their super breath, and there's a shot where like the ice cream like hits someone in the face and you see Non's like lips are so red as he's blowing like, you know, that's great. And of course Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is one of a kind, truly one of a kind. Such a special actor, such a special presence in this ensemble. That's a great choice, Superman 2. I love this film as well. I really do. Let's see, what else? Oh, The Terminator. So, The Terminator, I also saw this film rather early as well. This was it felt like a VHS, it was a VHS rental, and it felt always like a rough B movie horror film, a hard sci-fi horror film. There are a lot of intense scenes in this. It's pretty gruesome in a lot of places. Well rendered, and it was only after I think Terminator 2: Judgment Day came in the early '90s that kind of sealed the deal in terms of the really creating this huge Hollywood blockbuster aura around the film. But before that, it was the Terminator. It was this grimy, gritty, almost police procedural type of horror thriller, and it just goes haywire. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful setup. It just goes completely berserk around the time of the second act into the final conclusion. It's really wonderfully constructed. So, and let's see. Next up is The Thing, 1982. The Thing. This is the John Carpenter directed film. The Thing. I've spoken about John Carpenter films on the YouTube channel, and among those films, of course, is The Thing, which is perhaps one of the greatest films from the 1980s. It is one of the most wonderfully well constructed films. It is so mysterious that even now one can watch it and can develop a whole new theory, or different theories about who is what at what time, if you know what I mean. And the details that are so quirky, all the way down to the names of the characters, it's really quite a lovely, quirky detail. Windows, Childs, etc. And Wilford Brimley's in it, which is a great performance. There's also, of course, Kurt Russell, and also there's this sort of guessing game as to, again, who can we trust. Some wonderful set pieces, of course, that go down in terms of horror cinema iconography. One of my favorites here's one of my favorite moments for The Thing. I'll try to be as vague as possible for anyone who hasn't seen The Thing yet. But one of my favorite, which is like WTF moment. There's so many WTF moments in The Thing, and I've spoken about it on the YouTube channel. So I don't know if I can add any. Not that I was able to add anything before, because there's been so much great commentary and academic work on The Thing that I wouldn't be able to add anything of any value to the conversation anyway. But I did speak a little bit about it on the YouTube channel. So I love the film, and I revisit it rather frequently. But one of my favorite moments is that was a really scary moment, among other things, of course. There's the bit. There's also the bit with the it's great. Anyway. Oh, I love The Thing. And then, last but not least, The Verdict. 1982. So Sidney Lumet. This is the Sidney Lumet film, The Verdict, right? With Charlotte Rampling and Jack Warden and Paul Newman. Yes, of course, Paul Newman. And this is a wonderful a legal thriller, almost a down and out. What's the phrase? Ambulance chaser type of lawyer, portrayed by Paul Newman, trying to essentially take on what seemingly is an impossible case, but one where it looks like, he is fighting the good fight, but will he able to overcome all of the forces that are battling against him, not least of which the sort of institutional, hospital, religious-based institution defendant, or not defendant, but respondent, as well as the huge legal battle against the big time law firm as well. So this is a really wonderful, really wonderful. The verdict, I love the verdict, and there's a moment. Hold on. There's a moment here where the what's this? Concannon, right? Who's James Mason. James Mason. You look at James Mason. I mean, all the performances across the board are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Look at James Mason's performance, for example. There's a moment where James Mason does. He's in court, and he delivers a particular moment of what's known as civil procedure, and trying to thwart the admission of what otherwise might be very damaging evidence against his case in terms of defending his client, the sort of institutional hospital client, the doctors. And there's a moment where he is being, one of his the doctor clients sitting next to him holds his arm as though to congratulate him, but James Mason very slyly withholds his arm as though he's rejecting this moment. It's almost as though even the seemingly quote unquote evil lawyer adversary is himself a human being. So that is a really great moment. And of course, you got to go to the great rapport between, for instance, Jack Warden's character and Paul Newman's character. They've got this great back and forth rapport, and Paul Newman is giving a moment, just it's a tour de force. I mean, I use this phrase a lot, tour de force, but this is like the Paul Newman performance of all Paul Newman performances. There are so many great ones too. You look at the great list of performances that he's given. One of my favorites is something like The Hustler, for instance. I mean, look at the rugged nature of this. And Paul Newman here, he's down and out. He's still got the charm, but he is admittedly a down and out. He's a loser. And he is trying to overcome that in a way that is by the book. Even though there might be some moments, or a lot of moments of frailty, and a lot of moments of fragility. And this is a film about nuance, but it's also set forth in the legal field, where again it's about wins and losses, and so you are a winner or you are a loser in this sort of cutthroat world. While he is also trying to maneuver a lot of things that are happening. And you see it, for instance, in the way he's playing pinball. Is it pinball? Or the way he pours a drink in a kind of glass cup and drinks out of it. Or just tries to swagger his way just to try to hide how drunk he is. And you see him delivering a final or deliberation, a closing argument. It's a and you even see there are these great, wonderful cameos in the gallery there. For anyone who's you can spot some people who are going to be future stars as well. It's interesting to see the cameos in the back. But in any event, the verdict is, I love Sidney Lumet films, and especially when Sidney Lumet goes legal. He really is on firing on all thrusters. And so you've got the great Sidney Lumet legal films, 12 Angry Men is one. I think The Verdict is another. There's sort of different sides of the legal field, in a manner of speaking. So, well done for choosing that. I love The Verdict. I really, really love The Verdict. So, well done for choosing that. Charlotte Rampling, of course, Charlotte Rampling. That is what a complex performance she gives. Wow, wow! Everything about that film is top notch, down the line, across the board. Well done for choosing this, indeed. And even this quote unquote minor characters. Edward Binns. I mean, I mentioned 12 Angry Men. It's great to see Edward Binns. I mean, Jack Warden. It's great to see Jack Warden and Edward Binns in here. So you have a sort of mini 12 Angry Men reunion there. It's wonderful. Lindsay Krause, who is one of the key character moments here, in terms of making or breaking Paul Newman's case here, Galvin's case. So, and I mentioned, of course, James Mason, the seeming. I mean, he seems like just out and out, like, utterly villainous. But there is a moral methodology to his conniving as well, which is so it's by the book in terms of the use of legal procedure, evidentiary rules of evidence, and rules of civil procedure. Well done indeed for choosing that. I love The Verdict. I have it somewhere back here. It's the Blu-ray with Paul Newman's face on it. But I got to watch that film again. I love this film, The Verdict. Well done, GIZMORDOR, Tom, my dear friend. My dear friend. This is a great list. Well done. So, Tom, GIZMORDOR, once again, I sincerely apologize for the lateness of my reply. I hope you can forgive me. I really am very sorry about that. I want to thank you so much for your warmth and kindness and friendship. Really, really. And our conversations, I hope, can continue going forward. I can be here on Patreon or YouTube, or of course offline, of course. But my dear friend, thank you so much for your kindness and dear, generous support and friendship. I hope it's to continue. So thank you very much, GIZMORDOR, Tom, and thank you to all my Patreon friends and supporters. Really, thank you so much. I will, again, I'm very, very sorry for the lateness and the slow pace of my doing these videos, but I hope you can understand. But I will do my best to continue on, as I do have a number of other lists that I have received, so I have not forgotten about those. But I apologize profusely for the lateness of my reply. And then yes, I am continuing on with the Patreon page. So anyone who's interested in what I might have to offer in terms of the Patreon page, please check out the page. I have this project which is still ongoing. I have a number of videos, including some fan commentaries that I have made that are for Patreon, that are Patreon exclusive. So if you're interested in becoming a Patreon member, please feel free to explore it, and if you do, we would be very happy and welcome, and we would be very grateful to see you. You are always welcome. That's what I meant to say. You are always welcome, and we will be very grateful and happy to see you and welcome you with open arms. But in any event, my dear friends, I'm going to be at Patreon. I will also be on YouTube. That will be unchanged. And I'm also on Instagram as well. That is also unchanged. But you can find me in many different places, and I'll try to keep as active as I can. But again, my apologies for the slowness of my pace. But I am always very grateful for the continued support that you've shown me, GIZMORDOR, Tom, and many others. So thank you so much. And this is dedicated to GIZMORDOR, Tom. Thank you so much. Until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.